Welcome to the Depth Dive. Today we're really digging into the first season of Daredevil, Born Again. It just dropped this year, 2025.
That's right. Big one for fans.
Yeah, definitely. And look, maybe you're a longtime fan of the original Netflix show. Maybe you're just curious about this whole revival.
Or maybe just looking for a good breakdown of a new genre show.
Exactly. Whatever brings you here, our aim is to really unpack this season, figure out what makes it, well, tick.
And we've got a great source for this, a pretty detailed review, giving that fresh 2025 perspective on the whole season.
A comprehensive one.
Yeah, it covers the story, the acting, the tone, the overall impact, the works.
Okay, good. So our mission today, let's figure out how Born Again stacks up against the original. What does it get right? Where does it maybe fall a bit short?
And ultimately, is it a worthy return for the Devil of Hell's Kitchen?
That's the core question. All right, let's jump in. This review we're using, it positions Born Again as this interesting mix, part sequel, part reboot, spiritual successor maybe?
Yeah, it's trying to be both familiar and new. And you feel that right away, apparently.
Yeah.
Seeing Charlie Cox back as Matt Murdock.
Oh, yeah.
And Vincent D'Onofrio as Kingpin, that immediately connects you, right?
Definitely anchors it. But the review says it's not just season 4 of the old show.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
It makes that very clear. The landscape's different, the approach is different, it's evolved.
Okay, so let's talk about that evolution. One of the first things mentioned is the tone. The Netflix show was, well, it was raw.
Brutal, yeah.
Yeah.
Intense. Those fight scenes were legendary.
So what's the vibe here? The review mentions a shift.
It does. And, you have to consider the platform, right? Disney plus O.
Right.
So the analysis points to maybe a dialing back of the really explicit graphic violence. It's still gritty, they say.
Gritty for Disney Plus, though, maybe?
Yeah, compared to other stuff on there, probably. But it's not that relentless intensity we saw before. And the pacing is different, too. Slower, apparently. More focus on the political side of things, Matt's internal stuff.
Less constant action.
Less constant physical action, perhaps. More introspective. It sounds like a pretty significant shift.
So it's not just about meeting platform standards, then. It sounds deliberate.
The review seems to suggest that, they're consciously exploring the psychological weight on Matt. The battles are internal, political, not just fistfights.
A different kind of conflict.
Yeah, maybe more nuanced, moving beyond just, punching the bad guys.
Okay, so the story itself reflects that change. It's not just Daredevil cleaning up the streets night after night.
Exactly. The review lays out this central conflict. Matt's dealing with his legal career, his personal crises.
The lawyer side.
Right. And at the same time, Wilson Fisk is back. But he's got this new public image, political goals.
So Kingpin the politician.
Seems like it. So the stakes feel bigger. Not just street crime, but systemic problems, power plays.
That sounds complex. Higher stakes, maybe? The review mentions legal drama, moral ambiguity, Matt's struggle between justice and vengeance.
Yeah, that internal conflict is apparently front and center.
How do you think the fans who loved the original for the action, how will they take this? The review must touch on that.
It does. It kind of flags that potential reaction, acknowledging some might miss that adrenaline rush. But it frames this new direction as a chance to see an older Matt, more weathered, maybe more burdened by it all.
Like he's carrying more weight.
Exactly. Grappling with his faith, his methods. The story is built around that.
Okay, that makes sense. Character evolution. Speaking of characters, Charlie Cox is back. The review seems pretty positive about his performance.
Very positive. It highlights how he portrays this more broken, introspective Matt. Really compelling, apparently.
Broken how?
Well, it connects it directly to the Born Again comic storyline, Suggests they're really leaning into that specific arc. It's a new chapter.
Gotcha. And D'Onofrio, still commanding as Kingpin.
Oh yeah, magnetic presence is the term used.
Yeah.
But his power this time, it's described as more political. Manipulation, strategy.
Less about throwing people across rooms.
Probably less of that, yeah. More the behind-the-scenes operator.
Interesting. A different kind of threat. What about the rest of the gang? Foggy, Sharon. The review mentions absences.
Yeah, that's a potentially big deal for returning fans. The review notes they're not around as much for a good chunk of the season.
Really? They were so core to the original.
Absolutely. That dynamic was crucial, so their reduced presence could feel like a loss.
Does it say why? Or how it impacts Matt?
Not explicitly why, but it suggests it might disappoint fans who valued those relationships. The show introduces new supporting characters, but
mixed reception.
Seems like it, yeah. The review indicates they don't all land perfectly. It's tough introducing new people into such an established dynamic, isn't it?
True. Maybe it's meant to isolate Matt more, emphasize his struggle.
Could be. It's a good point. Makes his internal battle even more central.
Okay, so let's talk visuals and direction. The review mentions moving away from the, quote, overly stylized MCU sheen. What does that mean, practically?
Well, you know how sometimes MCU stuff can look very bright, very polished, lots of CGI maybe?
Yeah, a certain glossiness sometimes.
Right. This review suggests Born Again avoids that. It goes for, like, darker, moodier lighting, quiet tension, a more grounded feel overall.
And that extends to the fights, too, because the original's fights were, well, iconic.
They were. The analysis says the fights here are less frequent.
Oh.
But when they happen, they're more grounded. Brutal still, tightly choreographed,
Yeah.
but less over-the-top spectacle.
How do they achieve that?
The review mentions things like longer takes, tighter framing, makes it feel more claustrophobic, more about the struggle and the impact, less flashy editing.
So visceral in a different way, emotionally driven.
Exactly. Serving the story, not just action for its own sake. The review also highlights the return of courtroom scenes, says they're a real strength.
Oh, nice. Matt the lawyer back in action.
Yeah, lets Cox show his dramatic chops beyond just being Daredevil.
That's great to hear. That balance was always key in the comics. Okay, but no show's perfect. What about the criticisms, the flaws?
Yeah, the review definitely points out some issues. Pacing is a big one.
Too slow.
Can be, yeah. Especially the early episodes, apparently. Feels slow-moving at times.
And subplots.
Some feel underdeveloped, is the word used. Like they don't quite get the attention they need.
Okay.
And there's a critique about the finale, too. Maybe too much setup, not enough payoff.
Leaving too many threads hanging for next season, perhaps.
Potentially. That slower burn approach, the review suggests, is deliberate, aiming for character depth, political unfolding.
But it risks losing people who want that momentum, doesn't it?
It's a risk, yeah.
Yeah?
The review implies the payoffs might be bigger down the line, but you need patience.
Patience isn't always abundant with streaming shows.
It's true.
The review also mentions that balancing act. The gritty realism versus being part of the wider MCU.
Right. That's always tricky for these street-level shows. How do you fit in without losing your unique feel?
And does Born Again manage it?
The review suggests, maybe not always seamlessly, doesn't quite nail that integration perfectly all the time.
And MCU connections, cameos, should people expect those?
The review advises managing expectations there. Says it's largely a standalone story, this season at least. Don't go in expecting loads of crossovers.
Okay, so focus is internal to this story for now. Got it. So bringing this all together, what's the final word from the review? The overall feeling?
It describes it as a thoughtful, slower burning take on Daredevil.
Slower burning seems key.
Definitely. And it acknowledges, look, this won't be for everyone, especially if you only love the nonstop action of the Netflix one.
But there's potential.
Yeah, the review is optimistic, sees potential for it to grow into something really rich, character-driven in future seasons, says season 1 lays a strong foundation.
A strong foundation, and the description used.
Mature, restrained, and grounded return. Prioritizing substance over spectacle.
Mature, restrained, grounded. Okay. And the rating, did they give it a score?
They did. An 8 out of 10.
8 out of 10, that's pretty solid.
Yeah, frames it as a bold and grown-up revival.
Okay. So for everyone listening, the main takeaway seems to be Daredevil. Born Again is definitely a different beast. It leans heavily into Matt Murdock's internal world, Fisk's political games, maybe less of that constant high-impact action some might expect.
Right, it's trading some spectacle for maybe more depth.
And while there are some critiques, pacing, underdeveloped bits, the view seems to be it's setting up something promising, a mature new chapter.
Seems like it. A new beginning for the Devil of Hell's Kitchen.
Which leads us to a final thought, something for you all to chew on.
Yeah.
Given this shift we've been talking about, the tone, the focus, what does this signal about where superhero stories are going, especially on TV?
Interesting question.
And specifically, what's the future for these street-level heroes within these huge interconnected universes? Can they maintain this kind of grounded, mature feel?
That's the big question, isn't it? How do they fit? Worth thinking about.